Welcome to Caldwell County today. I'm Randy Fearman. I'm Planning Director, and what we're doing is a series of shows going out into the communities of Caldwell County, particularly the rural communities, and meeting people there and getting to know them a little bit and discussing what's going on in their community and possibly what impacts that they see is happening to their community. And from my perspective, getting a lot of background on the community, where it came from, how did it get named, what's been going on over the last 50 or 100 years maybe, but then where we're going in the next 5 or 10. And today we're in Buffalo Cove. Buffalo Cove, as everybody knows, a small community up in the mountains. And I think the landmark for Buffalo Cove is Todd General Store, a Todd Country Store. And I've got Herb Miller, which is the owner.
Yes.
So with me today. So I'm going to introduce Herb and just sort of let Herb tell you a little bit about Todd Country Store and about Buffalo Cove.
Thank you, Randy. To tell you the truth, I'm sort of an implant in Buffalo Cove. I grew up down in Happy Valley. The reason I am in Buffalo Cove now is I married the love of my life, and she was a Buffalo gal. Upon the death of her father and mother, we purchased the old home place, which the store is a part of. She had helped her father in the stores when she was a small girl, and she just couldn't bear to see the property get out of the family. So we bought the property and have kept the old store going now for going on 18 years. Most of the compensation that we get from the store is meeting people, making friends. Small business like this is struggling, but there is a compensation when you meet people and make friends. We are getting to the age now where we need to start thinking about some retirement years. And I don't know just what is going to happen with the store once we reach that point. I'm sure my wife can tell you more about the history of the store than I can. So I'm sure that later in the program she will give you some more facts on it.
All right, we've spoken a little bit with Herb Miller, and who you're seeing here now is John Hawkins, which is, you're connected to the Heritage Museum here in the county.
Right.
And so we've got John here to sort of give us a good background about Buffalo Cove, about the church and how it got its name, and anything else you can inform us about Buffalo Cove. So, John, welcome to the show.
Okay, I am a native of Buffalo Cove, Randy. I grew up here. As far as the history of the community is concerned, I have done a little bit of research on it. The name, Buffalo Cove, there's two stories, and I don't know which one of them is true. One is that at one time there was a family named Buffalo here. I have never found any evidence that that was true. The North Carolina Gazetteer says that it was a wintering place for buffaloes because it was surrounded by the mountains. It was a little milder, perhaps, than some of the surrounding areas, so the buffalo came into this area. Of course, I wasn't around to see any buffalo either. The first settlers came into this area in about 1789, I think, and they came up the Wilkes County area way, up Elk Creek and into the community that way, rather than up the Buffalo Creek, the most direct way from Lenoir. The first three families that were here were Curtises. They actually went on over into the Richlands area, but it's an adjoining community. The Cottrells, there are still Cottrell descendants in this community, and the Lansdowns. Now, there's not any Lansdowns by that name around, but one of the Lansdown daughters married a man named Peter Campbell, and the Campbell family was very strong in this community some years ago. Mr. Lansdowne sold his property to a man named Thomas Day. The Day family intermarried with the Cottrells, the Curtises, others. There are Day descendants around too. So those were the earliest families that came into this community prior to 1800.
What is the general boundaries is commonly called Buffalo Cove? What's the boundaries we're looking at?
Well, I don't know that there are any set boundaries per se. I guess technically would have to say when you turn off 268 and turn up the Buffalo Cove Road, that's the beginning of it. The people in the section where we are today call that Lower Buffalo sometimes. Then when you cross the mountain, that this is Buffalo Cove proper. I suppose when we go up to the Wilkes County line, that would be considered a boundary, in the Watauga County line. We're actually in the little apex, not far from Wilkes or Watauga, either one.
Okay. What can you tell me about the Buffalo Cove Church? How long has it been established? The church we see, when was it built or about?
All right. There may have been a place of worship prior to 1851, perhaps as an arm of either the Yadkin Baptist Church or the Elk Creek Church, because the charter members seem to come from those two churches when the church was formed in 1851. Actually, May the 8th, 1851 is the date it was established. The first building was about a mile farther on up the road, and it was probably a little log cabin. Nobody knows exactly what the building looks like. In the 1890s, I believe about 1894, they reestablished on the current lot here, built a one-room wooden building, and that was the first church that I remember going to as a little boy. And then in the 1950s, the building that they're in now was built. They have done some remodeling on it in recent years, but it's still that same building. Again, the charter members were Cottrells and Days and some of those early families that came in here.
We're talking about the Buffalo Cove Baptist Church. Is there any other denomination that's established their religion or their churches in this area?
At one time, there was an Advent Christian church in this community, but most of those members moved away, and a lot of them were charter members of First Advent Christian in Lenoir. There is a Stone Mountain Community Church here in the community, and it's an interdenominational church, I believe.
Okay, John, as you can't come to Buffalo Cove without seeing, of course, the store and the church, and another fixture for this community is right as you come here, you're looking straight at the cemetery. What can you tell me about the cemetery? Because if the church had been here for 150 years or more, the cemetery don't seem to be that large, and why not?
Well, the cemetery, I think the earliest burial maybe is in the early 1900s. I'm not sure about that. It was actually started as a family cemetery but given to the church a few years ago, and there are a lot of other family cemeteries around here. That is considered, I guess, the church cemetery and probably the community cemetery. Lots of people are there. My parents are buried there. I have a couple of uncles and aunts buried there, my grandparents. And it seems like there's more people in that cemetery that I know now than there are living. But yes, it's a kind of a very hallowed place, a very sacred place, a very meaningful place to those of us who have loved ones there.
Okay, from the opposite perspective, people who are looking to the future, as we came up the mountain, we saw a beautiful small community park. That really is something that the community could be proud of. Tell me how that came about, and how did it get built, and when did it get built?
The park has been in existence for the last 4 or 5 years. I'm not sure the exact time. And it was started as an outreach of the Buffalo Cove Church, just a way of reaching out to the community. A lot of people have done a lot of work down there. There's a nice place to have lunch, picnic, shelter there. There's places that you can wade in the creek if you'd like. There's a walking track. And so, yes, it is a nice asset to the community. And as I said, it's an outreach of Buffalo Cove Baptist Church.
Another thing we notice when you're in Buffalo Cove that you can't not notice, and and that is that Buffalo Cove is very much what we call in planning a traditional outpost, meaning that it's at a fork in a road. Sometimes it's a crossing in a creek, but in the case of Buffalo Cove, there's a fork in the road. So, where's the fork? You come here. Where's people coming from to get to Buffalo Cove when they come up? John mentioned that coming up from, I guess you'd say the south, from down in the Yadkin Valley, you're coming off of 268 and coming from Lenore. But when you get here, you're on the fork in the road and you got to make decisions. So where does the roads from Buffalo Cove take you to?
Okay, I've answered that question many times, Randy.
People lost?
People lost, yeah, and I always tell them, would you believe you're not the first one that's come in and asked that question? The right fork there at the church will take you back into Highway 268 down near Ferguson, North Carolina. Now, the left fork, about a mile past the store here, you run off the hardtop onto the gravel. And that'll take you up through Sampson Mountain. And it brings you in to the parkway over at Aho. At Aho Gap. So that is the destination of the two of the forks there.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of what's in downtown Buffalo Cove, and I've been up here many, many times. But if it's okay, I'd like to go in the store, maybe show some of the store, and then sit down and talk about more of the past of Buffalo Cove and perhaps what y'all see as potential impacts on the future. So if y'all join us, let's go in the store.
Sure.
Okay, we're inside the store, and I have Mary Miller, which is actually a Todd is her maiden name, and it was her parents who bought this store in 1924. So Mary, we've been talking about it some. Go back and recap what you were just telling me about when your mom and dad came and who they got the store from and where the original store was and how they came to when they built this store and all the history of it.
They came here in April of 1924, and I can't really remember a lot about it until up in the 30s. And my dad and mother ran the store in the older building. It was a lot larger than this one, and he bought it from John Hamlet. He was running the store. But then, about the first things I can remember is all the people in the community would come here to, like they do now, and just sit around here and talk. And he did all kinds of things. He was a postmaster. He gave rabies shots to the dogs. He sold medicine to people. And I can remember in the summertime, this probably was in the 1940s, the health nurse from Lenore would come up and give the vaccinations. And that was a really scary time for all us children then. We would line up, and she would be out here on the porch of the store, and she would give us the shots for like typhoid fever and diphtheria and all that. And
so you grew up playing with all the customers here.
Yeah. And always in the evenings, in the summertime especially, a lot of the children from the community would come to our house, and we would play games out in the yard, and play games like jump rope and hide and seek and just things like that. And
then they could come over here and get candy and soft drinks.
Yeah. No, my dad wouldn't let us have candy. He had big jars of candy all over these counters, and he just had a lot of. I remember one thing he had. They wouldn't let you do this now. He bought brown sugar in a big cardboard box with wax paper around it, and he kept it sitting over there. And I can remember going and getting a handful of brown sugar and eating that. I liked that. And he just sold a lot of things then, that everything anybody needed he had here. he sold gas and just about anything anybody needed, they could find it here.
So you grew up, and I don't know where you moved to or anything, but roughly 18 years ago you came back to operate the store, you and Mr. Miller?
That's right, yeah.
And why did you want to do that?
Well, it just, I don't know, I just hated to see it get out of our family, and my husband said he would help me, and we just wanted to get it started back up and just keep it going.
Now, were your parents still running it when y'all came here 18 years ago, when you came back?
They both passed away by then.
So at that point, there was a brief time, or how long did it close?
Not for long. We rented it for maybe about a year and a half, something like that. But then we came back in 1989, first day of January 1989. And it's just been getting busier and busier all the time. People just like to come in here because it's just like an old country store, and a lot of times people will come in, they'll say, well, this smells like an old country store. So, my grandfather used to have an old country store and said it smells like this.
My grandfather had an old country store in South Louisiana. I can remember going to it, the wood floors. And we used to, I don't know how he got it, we used to have these things that you can still get, but you can throw them down and they pop, like firecrackers, but you stomp them and all. And that was the only thing he would let me have because I was too little for anything else, he said. But I can remember that, and I can remember the candy that I used to get.
Yeah, I used to have a lot of penny candy. You don't have any penny candy anymore.
All righty. Let's, I think we may just go to the back and sit down and maybe sit with you and Herb and John and just talk about the community some. All right, we're inside of Todd's store. And we're sort of back in the back where you make sandwiches and stuff. And just wanted to have a time where we sort of talk. It's really the part of the show that perhaps I'm the most interested in, because as planning director, one of the things I want to know is how the community feels about itself. Where does the community feel like they're going? What do they want to see in the future? Case of Buffalo Cove, one thing that we've become very, I don't want to say concerned about, but that we're watching to see what the impact of what might be going to transpire is the impact of what's called the GIN development up in Watauga County, just across the county line from Buffalo Cove. So I guess we'll start with either one of you. You're born and raised here, you said, John?
Yes, I was born and raised here. I've seen a lot of changes in my lifetime. When I grew up, I knew everyone in the community, and most of the landowners here were descendants of the original settlers that we talked about earlier. And at that time, you probably could not have bought an inch of land in this community at all because the people were holding on to it. My generation primarily left the Cove area as far as residing here. A lot of them stayed in Caldwell County. But now that the older generation is dying out, the younger generation is inheriting the land, it's opening up to outsiders, if you want to call it that, and I don't mean that in an unkind way.
In talking outsiders, what do you define outsiders as? People who are coming from Lenore? Are they coming from the Raleigh area or from Florida?
Well, all the above. There are people who are still locals, Caldwell County people. There are people from other parts of the state and even from other states. Herb probably sees more of that here at the store than I do.
We're getting people through here from most everywhere. A lot of the local people, which I consider Lenore being local. Mm-hmm. In fact, we have a group here this morning that just like to come up to the store and just reminisce. Mm-hmm. And
sit around the wood stove.
That's right, and we have a lot of people that do that, and we just love for them to come.
Have you been seeing, cause you said you'd been here for 18 years here, but you've been in the valley, what we call the valley, Yadkin Valley, and your wife is from Buffalo Cove. Mm-hmm. Are you seeing any changing in the property ownership of people that are buying the land, or are you seeing perhaps corporations buying large tracts of land, or are you hearing anything? We can sit here and actually talk about rumor, and that's okay, because I'm just trying to get a little bit of a feel of what the local people know, what's coming through your store, what's the discussions and the conversation.
Okay, as a rule, it seems that the older people would like to see Buffalo Cove remain just as it is. The younger ones, of course, are looking for expansion, build up. I think that is going to come with this Gin company. I think that there's going to be a population explosion in this area.
When you say the young people, I look at young people as being maybe the workforce. People who do live here. What are they commuting to Lenore? Are they commuting to High Point to work, or have they found ways to make money up here?
There are more, I guess, people working in Lenore. Those who leave the community to work are primarily working in Lenore. Perhaps a few in North Wilkesboro area, I don't know. Maybe a few in Boone, I'm not sure about that. But primarily, and at least a few years ago, everyone who worked was going into Lenore to work. Of course, a lot of that group has aged out and they're retired now, too.
And as a planner, I mean, I don't want to see a boom. Not necessarily healthy for the economy. What you want to see is steady, consistent, constant type growth that you can depend upon. And that's why we're watching this area, because we're a little fearful that we might see a boom here that could change the character. And I guess I'm old enough that I don't want to see the character change tremendously. Planning director, I want to see our tax base and our growth be constant and consistent and something we can depend upon. As far as the community here, how do you feel like, as a whole, that they welcome some growth but not a tremendous growth? What do you think the community would like to see?
I think you pretty well expressed it there. Just a gradual growth. We can't live in the past. So I think the community would welcome just a gradual growth.
And an educated growth, too, to tell the people what's going on, so that it isn't sprung on us overnight, that type of thing. If we know what's going on and are perhaps even a part of planning.
That was going to be one of my questions. What might be one of your greatest fears? Or what do you think of people coming through that have lived here, I mean, for 10, 20, 30 years and more? What is their greatest fear? Other than the fear of the unknown, which we all may have, but...
I guess the greatest fear would be just changing the character of the community itself.
Describe what each of y'all feel is the character of the community.
The character of the community to me is just a group of citizens, country folk that just like to live life on an ordinary, simple basis.
Yes. Go ahead,
And,
John.
okay, I've lived here all of my life. I think friendliness is one of the things, helpfulness. If someone has a fire or a serious illness or something, people will rally behind them and help them, and particularly if it's a person who is trying to help himself. They're very good about helping those who need a hand up when that time comes.
What else do y'all want to tell me about Buffalo Cove? I mean, I can tell you it's a beautiful area. We commented coming up. I go up in the Globe a good bit. reminds me of the globe, but the valleys are a little more narrow. The coves are not quite as wide, whatever you want to say. But the mountains are just absolutely beautiful.
I think that we are blessed by being in a beautiful part of the county, and I agree with you. I think all of Caldwell County is beautiful. Mm-hmm. I've traveled around the United States quite a bit, and I don't think I've seen anything quite as pretty as ours, maybe because it is home. But certainly, yes, I agree that we are blessed to be in a beautiful part of the state.
The diversity of Caldwell County is what attracted me.
Right.
Besides wanting and desiring to get out of the large urban environment, I was blessed with having a number of job offers on the table, but that diversity is what caught my eye. Mm-hmm. Everything from down on the lake near Hickory all the way up into the most beautiful mountains in North Carolina as far as I'm concerned, because they haven't been spoiled. You can still talk to people who know their family's been here for 100 years or 150 years and even more. And that just is something you don't get at just any old place.
Mm-hmm.
So.
The quiet time of my day, my wife and I live down in Happy Valley, and the quiet time of my day is driving, the drive from Happy Valley up to the store, and you just enjoy the beauty of the mountains and all of the cares of business and the world just kind of take a back seat, you know.
Yes, if you want to be at peace with the world, go outside in Buffalo Cove about the time the sun's coming up of a morning. You're at peace with the world then.
I'll tell you, you and I, when we were talking outside, and you got an old 1950 Ford.
Yes.
I told you I had a 54 Chevy and had it restored when I got hit. I didn't have the faith in my brakes you got in your brakes of your truck. What else? Tell me. Who all can you tell me? I mean, you got pictures all over the store, but in the 18 years you've been here, or with Mary's parents, who are some of the more famous people that we might recognize the names of that have come through Buffalo Cove?
Well, the first one that comes to my mind is Doc Watson. Doc has been here, I believe, 3 times.
You get him to sit out there and play?
Oh, he sat here almost all day one day. Mm-hmm. Doc loves to tell funny stories. He loves to get out and just where he can just be Doc, you know. And he sat here and he'd tell funny stories for a while. He'd pick for a while. He'd sing for a while. He'd eat for a while. And we just had a great time with him here that day. George Johns, who was a very famous gospel singer. Mm-hmm. He and his family have been here. George and I are very close friends, or were very close friends. George passed away last year. In fact, we sang together as teenagers. And my dad contributed a lot to George's success. And he's just been a very special person in our life. We've had Roger Hicks, who's a local musician, and Lindy Johnson, and
Kay and Patrick Crouch.
Just numerous musicians, and all of them. You know, Caldwell County has some great local musicians.
Do you ever have any time where they just come up and pick around the stove or pick out on the front porch in the summer?
Right here in the area.
They sit right back here and pick.
Yes, and it's
always unannounced, or is there any?
It's always unannounced.
Hard for me to know when to come.
Yeah, I hope that one day I can get some kind of a regular schedule set up so I can let people know. But right now we're a little limited for space, as you can see.
And it's not unusual sometimes for the people here in the community to just gather and sing. There used to be a piano in this area, and somebody sit down at the piano, and the next thing you know, there were people gathered around singing. So.
That's what, before I moved to Caldwell County, my wife and I used to take weekends and head up to the mountains somewhere and take these small downtowns, maybe Buffalo Cove, and we would be driving by and see somebody picking, either a guitar, banjo, or something. There's where we'd spend the rest of the afternoon, is sitting there enjoying it, because hard to beat bluegrass or gospel bluegrass being played right then and right there.
Right.
It's just beautiful music to sit down and listen to.
Randy, I was reminded of something you said that some years ago someone visited my parents. I don't recall for what reason they were there. But on the way home, she told the lady that she was with that I feel like I have visited with real people. And I guess that's the way you would describe the people of Buffalo Cove, as real people.
Right.
Okay. Now, we've talked a lot about Buffalo Cove and the store and the history of it. And one thing, I was up here about a year ago, I guess, and I actually noticed that next door there's a small enterprise beginning, and comes to find out it's your son.
Yes.
And we really got to talking to him a lot about what he does, because I know he does signs. He's got wood stoves over there, and then somebody's building what I call a hunter's cabin, self-sufficient with solar panels. And so you're sitting up here in Buffalo Cove, and here's these little camp cabins with solar panels, which isn't exactly last century technology. So if y'all are up to it, let's go over and see what he's got going on today, and see what his business is doing.
Great.
Okay? All right, John and Herb and I were just fixing to go next door and see what his son's got going on when they said that Luther Adams was here, and I don't know if he's proud of the fact or if he's going to get upset when they announce that you're they believe the oldest resident of what's called Buffalo Cove.
Yeah.
And so I've got Luther Adams here, and I think what we wanted to do is just say, how long have you been here? What do you remember about Buffalo Cove?
Well, I come here in 1922, and the old store set a little different what it does now. But across the branch out there, there wasn't but one automobile in here. The Cotter brothers on it. Mr. Todd come in here and I made 2 T-models. That was all in here.
Can't imagine going down that hill in a Model T.
Huh?
I'm just telling her, if I had a 54 Chevy, I wouldn't trust my brakes going down the hill. And a Model T, I know I wouldn't trust the brakes.
Yeah. But anyhow, we just had a medium road out of here, very crooked, out of Buffalo. Get out pretty good. And back, where I live back up this holler, horse and wagons always get up through there. So,
now, in 1922, you would have been how old? Were you
4-year-old, little past 4-year-old.
What brought your parents here? Do you know?
Huh?
Why did your parents move to Buffalo Cove?
Well, we lived over on what's called Elk Creek, Denny. Dad moved in here. Dad bought a little place up here, so we moved up there and been in here ever since.
Now, if you've lived here then for 84 years.
Yeah. I know 80. I was going to be 88. Yeah, about 84
Almost
years.
84. What did you do for a living all those years? How did you manage not to have to leave Buffalo Cove?
Well, we always kept a pair of horses. We farmed. We lived off the land back then. We had ducks and chickens and guineas.
How much land?
We had approximately, I guess, about 70 acres back then. We bought some more and then sold some. But,
Yeah, see, my grandpa, thankfully I had 2 grandpas like most people. One ran a little country store. The other one had 13 acres and made a living off of it.
Yeah.
Today you couldn't even think of it, but sold eggs, raised chickens, actually grew trees that had what's called tongue nuts on them. And that was the oil. They squashed the nuts to put in paint, in oil-based paint.
Yeah.
But he was one of the most creative people at making a living off the land I've ever known.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we lived up here and we cut this old dog hobble, they call it, pulled galax out of the mountain, ginseng. Yeah, we come down here to the store and trade that for Mr. Todd bought all this stuff in bags, 100-pound bags. So we bring a lard bucket, we needed lard, and he weigh the bucket and then dip the lard out with a paddle. Put it in the bucket. We trade eggs in for coffee and sugar.
wow. And what else did you do?
Well, we just made a living up there raising corn, beans, and potatoes. We raised 2 kinds of potatoes, sweet potatoes and iced potatoes for the winter, We tried to raise enough food this summer to do us over to the next year.
How many brothers and sisters?
I had 2 brothers and 3 sisters.
Did they all stay in Buffalo Cove, or did?
But most of them did. All was gone now but me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm the only one left.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I ask you this because my dad was unfortunate to be part of a divorced family, so at age 10 or 12, he was given a single barrel 410, told to hunt for the family to get food. Did you hunt for recreation, or did you hunt for food?
We hunted for food. We kept dogs, and we'd set these rabbit boxes, you know, to catch rabbits in. Yeah, if we caught a possum, we eat it too.
Oh yeah, my dad can tell you what possum tastes like.
So I told him whatever walk wiggle or crow, if we could kill it, we'd eat.
You know, my dad's 83, so he's only 5 years behind you.
Yeah.
And he's got some real stories of, only this was rural South Louisiana.
Yeah.
What about fishing? Fishing any good up here
We
when you were young?
had plenty of fish, and then eels about that long. That little branch was full of them eels. The 40 flood took them out, and I've known 2 eels since the 40 flood.
Really? They've like it just wiped out the...
They wiped out, but on an eel, you catch one and just slap a tail against the rock or something about that much of it. It slaps in his tail.
Huh.
You believe that or not? You slap him over a rock or something, and he's dead.
Now, what would you do with the eel?
We take a nail and nail his head in a block, us youngest was.
Yeah, skin it
He
like a
lived around
catfish.
there. Some people call him a he catfish.
The little mud cat, is what we're talking about? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
What we call a chow cat. We just cut a ring around there and peel him off, but you cut it up in chunks about like that, and then it tasted just like a catfish.
I caught bukus of them growing up. I can't say I ever ate one.
Yeah, we eat 'em. Whatever we lived a whole lot out of the mountain.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe how you can, I guess necessity is the mother of invention, they say. Well, you get creative whenever that's all you got.
Yeah. We had a few dogs. My neighbor up there, he had the dogs. He coon hunted a lot. I'd go with him a whole lot, groundhoggers. The coon hide back then would bring you $8 to $12.
Really?
Yeah.
And so you would, is that the only hides you would hunt or trap for as coon?
Oh, we catch possum. Possum I brought you about $1, $1.25.
So coon brought more than fox.
Oh yeah, it brought more than the possum. And a fox hide back then, it'd bring you a skunk.
I wouldn't get near a skunk.
Whatever them dogs tree or run, that's what we kill. It make no difference.
Yeah.
If it's a skunk, we killed it. If it's a polecat or, well, it's a civet cat now, and a polecat's two different ones.
Tell me the difference.
One of them's big, long, and about like this, black, and the other's a little feather about this long, with spotted. So there's difference in it.
Okay.
But they're both
both are skunks, right?
They both stink.
Okay. Because that's actually where I live in Kings Creek. A guy that's helping me, or is my main contractor on a house for my sister-in-law, asked to set traps in my backyard for coons, for training his coon dogs last week. And the first thing he did was catch a big old 25-pound coon. Well, the next morning he checked and he had a skunk. And then the next morning he said he had a polecat. To me, they were always the same. And so maybe he had one of the little ones and one of the big ones. I don't know.
Well, we call one a
Either
civet.
way, you're real careful about letting them out of the trap.
Yeah, you call one a civet cat, and the skunk, and then the polecat is the long one.
I didn't know there was any difference.
There's a whole lot of difference. But like I said, they're all thing.
Yeah.
And a mink thing just about as bad as a polecat.
Now, I've seen one mink in the 5 years I've been here. A real pretty brown mink.
Yeah. We got a black one too.
You got black minks
Yeah,
in here? Well, I do appreciate you giving me a few minutes of your time to talk about Buffalo Cove. And what else do you want to tell me about Buffalo Cove? Anything else?
Well, we just come up harbor. Well, a lot of times we plowed a steer up here. Ox, you know. They put the harness on them and plow. Big long horns. We plowed him. If we didn't have a horse or mule plowed ox. A steer.
Which one plows better, a horse or an ox?
That old steer, he used to slow. You had to start early and work right to get anything done. So you get anything done. Funny, we worked him chicken time from daylight to dark.
Okay. Thank you so much
Yeah, thank
for
you,
your
thank
time. I appreciate it, Luther.
Yeah.
And
I
sort of
don't
made
put-
this show special for me.
Up here about a mile and 2/10. Stayed around here a long time.
Sir?
I said I've been staying around here a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we've gone from the general store across to a building next to it, and we've met Herb's son, which is Mike Miller. And Mike is let's say, becoming an entrepreneur in the sense that he has created his own wood stove, and you call it the Todd stove. So I'm just going to go right into it and let you take over the program because tell us all about your stove and why it's called Todd stove and all that.
Okay. I guess it was probably 10 years ago or so. I was making a lot of trips to China, and I was working there in the piano industry. And I met a kid over there named Tai Wenjin, a really smart Chinese young guy, graduated Shanghai University, speaks about 5 languages. And we decided we wanted to go in together and just have a project. We looked at a lot of different things in China, and we were looking for something that was sort of a niche, I guess you would say, that everybody else wasn't building. And there was one day, I think my dad had bought an old cook stove at maybe an auction or somewhere. And I went over to help him unload it in front of the store. And I think there were 2 or 3 people that very day that stopped and said, "Gee, I'd like to have one of those." And it just kind of gave the little light bulb thing, and it was just an idea from that. And I started looking at old cook stoves. And I remember my grandmother, Todd, cooking on one. And we took several old stoves from the late teens and early 20s and came up with our own design. And we set up manufacturing in Beijing, China. There's not very many companies in the world that still make a wood cook stove. There's a couple of companies in Canada. One's called Heartland, one's called Enterprise. And they make an excellent cook stove, but they're really, really pricey. They can run $5,000, even $6,000 for one. So our idea was to build it in China where it could be affordable. We had it tested in the United States for Canada and the United States by Warnock Hersey Labs, which is equivalent to UL Laboratories. So it is a high-quality product, even though it's built in China. We monitor the quality very closely, and it's just been well accepted in Canada and the United States. We've sold some in New Zealand. We've sold some in Japan, and it's. I can show you kind of briefly how one works. The above part here is your overhead warmers. People would put bread, biscuits, whatnot up here, and the heat would kind of hover in this area and keep stuff warm there for hours and hours.
So that upper part is heated with the wood heat.
The heat kind of hangs underneath here,
Keeps it.
and it stays warm up there for hours. It won't cook, but it'll keep. They call them bread warmers. And of course, in the late teens, early 20s, nobody had a hot water heater in their home. So basically, the water they would get either from the creek or their well was just freezing cold. So all the old stoves had this. This is a water jacket. Ours is stainless steel. It has a spigot in the back. It holds 6 gallons of water. Will not get the water boiling hot, but it keeps it warm enough, say, to do dishes or maybe take a bird bath, you know. That was what that was used for. Then you have your oven here. Works pretty much the same as an electric oven, except one advantage. People say the old cook stoves, everything tastes so much better when it's cooked on them, and that's actually a true fact. The heat's different. An electric oven, if you've ever noticed, you have an element in the top and the bottom for broil or bake. On a wood cook stove, you get 5 sides of heat. It's the perfect convection oven. So that's one reason the food tastes so much better. Of course, you can load the wood in from the front, or this thing you were looking at a minute ago, you can load it from the top. And there's a real art to cooking on one. I've got this one over here I've cooked on for several years. It takes a lot of trial and error, practice to get good on it. But the basic principle is your fire, of course, is in this area here that I just showed you. So this would be your hottest area, naturally. So it's pretty much, if you're, say, frying some bacon or whatever here, and it gets too hot, you just move your pan over a notch. And then too hot here, you move over another notch. So essentially on a wood cook stove, this is your hot, medium, and low. And then your oven temperature is controlled with this lever here that either shoots the fire straight out the back or lets it encircle the oven.
Is that basically a damper?
It is, kind of like a damper.
Okay.
So
and this is to...
this is where you remove ashes.
Okay.
You just dump them down here. It's a little more trouble than a microwave.
How long will a fire burn?
This will hold a fire for probably 2 or 3 hours. That's just a little clean out there. Just periodically, the soot will accumulate in there, and you want to keep the soot cleaned out because the soot tends to insulate the oven. So you just clean it out from that area there.
Now, I heated with wood for about 15 years.
Is that right?
On just a basic buck stove and a Fisher stove. This is so contained. I burned anything that was made of wood.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
Right.
What is the best wood to burn in one of these?
Well, you start it with pine. You start with a soft wood like pine that makes a quick, hot fire. My favorite thing to burn is hickory slabs because they tend to burn hot and long.
Okay. So you don't have a problem putting pine in it with the creosote that comes off of it?
Well, I usually use pine initially just to get it started. We call it kindling.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because hickory burns real hot, real clean, very little creosote off of it. How long have you been making the stoves?
we brought this out in '99, which by sheer coincidence was Y2K. It was kind of a mixed curse and blessing, I guess you'd say. We couldn't build enough during Y2K because everybody thought their power was going off. I didn't build this for the purpose of Y2K at all. It just happened that way by coincidence. But they've done quite well. The difference, you were talking about heating with wood. The difference in a cook stove and a wood heating stove, a heating stove will burn a much larger log than this will. And a heating stove is built to radiate heat out.
And the heat, the structure with this is to cook with.
This is built to keep the heat in. It's insulated. In fact, after the fire goes out, you can walk by several hours later and still see some temperature on your oven thermometer because it holds the heat in. You
talked about the general price, and I don't know if you want to talk price, but what's your price range for the stoves you offer?
We just mostly wholesale to dealers and distributors. I'll put a plug in. Shields in Lenore is my local dealer. I'm not sure exactly what his price is on them. The price can range anywhere from the $1,400 to upward toward $2,000. I have dealers in Alaska that sell them for $2,000.
So you don't actually sell and install. You're actually the manufacturer and the distributor. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, that's not the only thing you do around here.
That's exactly right.
Let's talk about the other thing you do around here.
I'll need to get Keith Hartzell to talk with you.
Well, let's get Keith and talk about our other half of your business.
Good enough.
All right, we've moved from the stove portion of the business to sort of in the back to sort of a woodworking shop, but it's not your typical woodworking shop. I've met Keith Hartzell. I'm going to call you Keith. Keith was just telling me that he actually proves that Buffalo Cove welcomes people because he's a Yankee and they welcomed him from Ohio, and had sort of teamed up with Mike and sort of gone under the company umbrella. But Keith, you do wood signs, and we've seen some beautiful work of yours up in the front of signs and mantles and all, but we wanted to come back and see some of the stuff you're working on. So introduce your company to us.
This is Mountaineer Signs. We're custom woodworking. We do signs, mantles, custom cabinetry. We got a few pieces laying around here now, but a lot of just custom painting, airbrushing, all hand done stuff.
And how did you learn to do this, and where? Who taught you?
I've been in the business about 22 years. I just working with a lot of good craftsmen and stuff, and just picked up little things along the way, and just trial and error and on the job training.
Now your signs are predominantly made out of. You were saying, is it all of them made out of cedar or mostly cedar?
Yeah, most of it's out of cedar. They got a new substrate. It's a sign foam that it doesn't warp or corrode like the wood does. And a lot of people are turning to that, but I kind of favor the woodworking.
More of a craft, more of a skill, and takes I think more talent to do that. Well, tell us. We're looking at a cabinet over there. Is that a pre-sold, or is it something that's coming up through your mind and being designed? A
lot of the things are not pre-sold. A lot of the signs that you see around here, they're sold, but a lot of things, that's when I got a little extra time, and I just get an idea. Like this gun cabinet we got over here, it's all sandblasted. It just gives it a rough texture, and then you got some hand paintings on it and stuff. We did one like that a while back, and the same kind of panel there. And we put deer antlers for the handles on it and stuff.
And where would you go to market this?
Well, actually, around Buffalo here, a lot of people come through from Florida and stuff and see our work down here. So we do a little bit of marketing, go up around Blowing Rock and Boone and talk to a few customers. But a lot of it, people walk in here, they go to the country store next door, and then they come over here and see some of our work. And we sell a few pieces here and there like that.
Okay, well, let's take a short break and walk over to the sign that you're working on, and then maybe we can close by showing a lot of your work up front. Okay? All right, we're going over to the other end of the workshop, Keith, and tell us about what you're doing here and how you go about doing it, because I can tell because of the shades coloring that this had to be put together. It's not one single board. But, again, I know we're working in cedar. But tell us about this sign you're making.
We start out with single boards of 2x8 cedar usually, and then we just join them together to whatever size we got. This sign right here, it's just a rough sign. Right after sandblasting, I'm still sanding on it, wood puttying it, getting it ready for painting. This sign's going up in Blowing Rock to a new car dealership up there.
You know what I just thought of? What's that? These good, strong, strict sign regulations can help businesses like yours.
Well, they can in Blowing Rock. It's a pretty strict in the sign industry, that's for sure. They require you to have a sandblasted or hand-routed sign. And that's what we do. We specialize in hand-routed and sandblasted signs, just custom stuff. We also do vinyl graphics, magnetics, and things like that, but we do more custom woodworking than anything.
Okay, well, let's go up front and see some of the finished products. All right, Keith and I have gone back to the front where the stoves are and sort of pulled some of his stuff together to show it in one place. But Keith, sort of start at the top and work down, tell us what you've been doing and how you go about doing this. Where do you get your ideas and everything else you can tell us?
Well, this first one up here, this is just a mantle. I just got an idea maybe making. I do a lot of fishing myself, and a lot of people around like the fishing and hunting stuff. So I did this mantle sort of as a shelf. And got some brackets here to maybe hang an old antique fishing rod is what I was thinking about when I come up with this idea here. A lot of this stuff I just kind of come up with. Some people come to me and they say they want a certain design, but this is just stuff that I favor. I got a black bear on a mantle down here. A couple signs, welcome to our cabin in the woods, which a lot of people like that because a lot of people come up here to build a cabin in the woods or a log cabin home. We got a few signs down here, God Bless America. We made something like this for a business up in the Trade Center. They had us do some work for them for a business that got destroyed up there. And then we just got another mantle down here. And this bottom sign, that's just a sign for a development up in Linville that we had an extra one of. But we did the whole development with signs like that, Black Bear Trail, Fawn Trail, and that's Bear Creek at Linville is what that one there is for.
Take the top mantle. How many man-hours would you might have in it?
Oh, I would probably say between maybe 8 and 14 hours, depending on the painting and stuff on it.
I'd have 8 to 14 years on it.
Yeah, we got a lot of little hand-painted flies, just types of dry flies on one side, wet flies on the other side. So I like to get a little more detailed on stuff.
Now, how do you paint those on there? I
Well-
know it sounds like a dumb question, but are we talking brush painting, airbrush painting? Or how do you get all your different things onto your mantles and your signs?
It's a series of brushing. We brush a few coats of clear on it. We stain it, put a few coats of clear on it, and then we go in and do a cross between airbrushing and hand painting on it. I airbrush the backgrounds and then go in with the flies and stuff up here. They're all hand painted with just a brush. The rest of it's airbrushed. But most of it is just airbrushed or hand painted.
Okay. In closing, I guess I'm asking you any closing statement you want, and most important, name of your company, and if somebody's interested in getting in touch with you, phone number, address, web page, email, a little bit of everything. How would somebody want it to talk to you about making a sign? How would they get in touch with you?
Again, we're with Mountaineer Signs in Buffalo Cove. The number is 828-757-1084. And we're just a custom sign shop. We do more custom stuff than anything. If you just want something different, that's what we can supply for you.
Well, I've really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it about a year ago. I don't know if you remember me. I was up here and I spoke to Mike, and I remember meeting you briefly, and I was impressed with it then, and was happy to find that you're still up here doing it and making a living doing it, and have really been impressed with the work of both the stoves and the signs. And of course, Buffalo Cove is one of those communities that you just can't go in and not be impressed by it, because it's so quaint. And every time I've been up in this area, everybody's always been so nice. So that's why I think Bill maybe decided to start. We're doing a show or a series of shows on different communities in our county. And we decided to start with Buffalo Cove because Buffalo Cove is a very unique little mountain community, and always wonderful to come up here. We've come out of the buildings to the side of the country store, and I guess we're still advertising Keith because he did your sign on your truck. But we're going to close our show, and I'm going to start with John, giving you the last chance to say what you want about Buffalo Cove.
Well, we appreciate your coming to Buffalo Cove today. Perhaps there are those who don't know where Buffalo Cove is. If you're coming from Lenore, take 321 north, turn right on 268, about 3 or 4 miles to the Patterson School, and turn left, and you're on the Buffalo Cove Road there, and it's about 7 miles from there to Todd's store, which I guess would be the equivalent of the square of Buffalo Cove.
I always know how to get here because 268 hangs a 90-degree turn, and right after that you go across the river. But you sort of flow to the left, but it's almost flowing straight. Just don't get hit by the car coming towards you.
That's right.
And then come up to Buffalo Cove. And Herb, closing remarks.
Randy, we just appreciate you guys coming today to our little community here. I have a very special place in my heart for Buffalo Cove. Not only did I find my wife here, my dad grew up in this community. I had a grandfather that was affiliated with the store many years ago, and I don't know if he was just an employee or whether he had a vested interest in it. And then I had a great-grandfather, Reverend I.E. Miller, that pastored the Buffalo Cove Baptist Church at one time, and I'm not sure for how long that was. So I have a lot of soft spots in my heart for the community, and we love it here, and we just appreciate you guys taking the interest in it today.
One last question. Somebody wants to come up and sit around the wood stove Monday through Saturday?
Monday through Saturday.
And what's the hours?
8 till 5, but we don't always get out of here at 5. You know, as long as people are here and enjoying themselves, we're here with them.
Okay. In closing, I know I've enjoyed doing the show. I always enjoy coming up in this area, but I think we just hope that our people who watch our show have enjoyed it, and we want to thank you for watching Caldwell County Today.